Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the PMP Exam Prep Bootcamp information session. My name is Kristen Spindler, and I'm the director of IncubatorCTX and a faculty member at Concordia University, Texas. Today, we're going to talk about the PMP exam, what's different for 2021, and how Concordia's Bootcamp can help prepare you for the test. The session today will last about 30 minutes with time for Q&A afterwards. First, I'd like to introduce our team. Turan Kosh. Turan is a Concordia University, Texas adjunct professor who teaches project management courses. She's a PMP herself, and she's coached many students to pass the PMP exam. Turan's also going to be speaking on April 7th from 12 to 1 about the right mindset to manage your time efficiently. So we'll talk about that a little bit at the end, but stay tuned for that. Next is Ahmed Zuhair. Ahmed is an experienced PMP instructor, coach, consultant, and a PMP himself. Between the two of them, they have many years of experience and have had great reviews of their students passing the PMP exam. Behind the scenes, we also have Kristen Coulter, our VP of Partnerships, and Sally Mercer, our Director of Partnerships at Concordia University, Texas. So today, let's give a virtual welcome to Turan and Ahmed. So before I turn it over to Turan, we wanted to know why everybody is here today. So we're going to launch a poll, and if you don't mind answering the poll, that'll give us a great idea about our audience today. And as you see, 79% of you said career advancement is the most important reason, 16% for career change, and 5% for salary increase. So with that, thank you, and I'm going to turn it over to Turan.
Hello, everyone. So from the poll that you just launched, I can tell that you're in the right place. So the agenda for today is first to introduce Project Management Institute. Several of you already familiar with the PMI, and for benefit to others, I want everyone to be on the same page. And what is PMP certifications? We talk about PMP 2021 exam updates, the action items to become a PMP certified, to get that career advancement or the change in your career. And we discuss Concordia, a PMP exam prep bootcamp training. And then once you are certified, we discuss how to maintain your PDUs. Project Management Institute, PMI, is a global organization for those who consider project, program, or portfolio management as their profession. PMI just celebrated its 50th anniversary in 2019. At that time, I was VP of Professional Development for PMI Austin chapter, and I was one of the lucky ones to join the celebration. They were in LA. PMI standards for project and program and portfolio management are the most recognized in the profession. And PMI standards are modeled for project management in business and government in a variety of industries. PMI has over 1.6 million certification holders around the world, and globally 1 million active PMPs. And PMI has presence in over 208 countries and 8 business regions. If you notice, this is from 2019, and I would say the numbers shown here are expanding. I would say by now, PMI has members in 214 countries around the world, and with 300 chapters and 10,000 volunteers. So I don't want to offend anyone, but for the sake of speaking PMI language, I want to go through just definitions of what is a project, as a PMI defines it, project is a temporary endeavor to create a unique product, service, or result. And then for us, project management is application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet the project requirements. And as project managers, we are skilled and credentialed practitioners that we work well under pressure and we are comfortable with change and complexity in ever-changing environment. PMI certifications are recognized around the world to advance careers, and PMI research and development improve organizational success and improve the project management profession. Project managers are found in every kind of organization, as example here, as employees, managers, contractors, and independent consultants. With experience, project manager may become a program managers that they're responsible for multiple related projects, or a portfolio manager or portfolio managers are responsible for selection, prioritization, and alignment of projects or the programs with the enterprise strategy. Project managers, or PMs as we call them, are in constant demand by executives and HR managers in many career paths. This is just the few examples I've provided here. But the point is that even if project management is not part of your title, the PMP applies to anyone who helps bring a project to completion. So many of you that you're here today and you want to take the PMP exam, you may be doing work that you already working as a project manager, or your title may not be project manager, but regardless of your profession, the PMP recognizes your ability to manage projects. So it's not surprising to see this data from the PMI's biennial reporting earning power. This is the project management salary survey, and it includes a source of data from 32,000 respondents in 42 countries with salary data reported in their local currency. For this report, I pulled the data for Texas and closer to our region. As you notice, the average and the median salary for PMP certified is around 25 to 126,000. And among all the countries that they were surveyed, the median salary for professionals with PMP is 25% higher than those without PMP certification. And research tells us that employees will need to fill about 2.2 million new project-oriented roles each year through 2027. So our demand is going to be a lot increasing as we go through 2027. And as a project manager professional, as a PMP, over time, as a certified and experienced PM, your median salary increases over time. So now that we got the definitions and the salary out of the way, let's talk about PMBOK. The PMBOK is abbreviation for PMBOK is Project Management Body of Knowledge, and is PMI's flagship publication and is a fundamental resource for effective project management in any industry. The standard for project management, the PMBOK, which now we refer to PMBOK 7 edition, contains two resources. One is the Standard for Project Management, which is the American National Standard Institute ANSI designation, and PMBOK guide as a framework for applying the standard based on the broad body of knowledge which within the project management profession. PMBOK gets updated every 4 to 5 years, and this time around, for those of you familiar with PMBOK 6, the PMBOK 7 this time updated, changed the entire structure of the standard for project management, and the shift is focused on value delivery. It emphasizes that projects, programs, portfolios, products, and operations, all of this exists to provide value and benefits to organizations and stakeholders. When we talk about value, value can be defined not only as financial value, but also non-financial value, such as public goods, research development, and organizational learning. Also, there is emphasis on business environment. Projects need to be tailored depending on their business environment. So you notice in PMBOK 7, they talk a lot about tailoring. And there is an emphasis on people, an emphasis on leading as well as managing. When you work on a project, you need to use a lot of your management skills, right? You have a lot of cost analysis, scheduling, reporting. These are your project management skills. And now when if you work with product development, for example, where you meet with your customer every 2 weeks for a project, and you need to support your team and remove your impediments and work with your product owner to prioritize the requirements of what the customer has. And this applies for more of your leadership skills. And then we still have the processes in place, but with this change, value drives processes, and we are moving from project management process groups to value delivery. For those of you familiar with PMBOK 6, the project management was based on integration of project management processes categorized in these 5 process groups: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. So the processes by their nature lean more toward a more predictive or waterfall approach. So if I'm talking about predictive, waterfall, or traditional, we all talk about this process as I mentioned. So PMI did a role delineation, and what it means that this survey with project managers around the world and say, well, how do you manage your projects? Many project managers said not just by waterfall, but also we manage projects through Agile. So you heard of Agile if you're in IT, but it's not just for the IT or digital world. Agility and flexibility or adaptability, that's why they call it adaptive approach or Agile approach. It means that instead of planning ahead and forecasting the whole project delivery, you do that in increments. So you plan a little bit and you have a sprint, which could be 2 to 4 weeks, a period of time, and you come back to your customer. Your customer has a lot of interaction with you. You come back to your customer and show your product that you planned on, and then you make some changes to it. You move on to the next step of planning. So as project management, evolves, we start to shift in managing projects that we see now is an agile project management approach. Or maybe is a combination of agile and waterfall, which we call it hybrid approach. And I gave an example of not applying this just for digital world. Of course, for IT world, when we look at our iPhones or Samsungs, or any apps that we use, we see the iteration of the models that every time it comes, they call it minimum viable product, MPV. They come up with the app or the design. At the beginning, we could only do texting, for example, and then we added image, and we can have FaceTiming on the next iteration, and we can actually share files on the next iteration. And that's what the flexibility brings to the agile. Or not have an example of digital world, you may be doing prototype, which one of my students last week, we were talking in class, brought up the example that their client they wanted parts for their equipment for deep underground cracking. So what my student and his company did was designing the prototype, going back to the customer and saying, if this is what you want, and saying, yeah, maybe a little bit of different changes. So over time, it comes to the part that they're looking for before they can send it to machine shop for design. So regardless of your approach, the principle of project delivery is is focused on delivering value. The project lifecycle and the delivery approach influences how you plan and how often you plan, and the planning influences the life cycle you select. For example, if you need to have a detailed upfront, meaning the waterfall approach, then that affects your development approach and the project delivery approach. The other change that is new for PMP 2021 exam is that there are 3 domains, and the percentage of questions are as follows. With people domain, that includes roles and organizations, project resource management, project stakeholders, and communication management. The processes take 50% of exam questions and includes the agile and hybrid, project integration, and scope, schedule, cost, procurement. And then you have the business environment with 8%. So you notice that the knowledge areas, they're still there, but they move them around into 3 domains. So now that you're here, you want to be a PMP certified. What are the steps to become a PMP certified? First of all, you have to meet the requirements, which I will go over. And then you take your exam, you plan the exam date, and then you want to prepare for the exam, and that's where Concordia comes in to help you to prepare for the exam, take your exam, and once you become a PMP certified, then we also offer continuing education for keeping your certificate that you work so hard as. Is not you don't want to miss that certification and take another exam. The requirements for education requirements and experience for filling your application on PMI website is that with the bachelor degrees or a global equivalent, you're required to have minimum of 3 years of unique, non-overlapping professional project management prior to the application date, plus the 35 contact hours of specific project management education, or if you are a CAPM holder, then that would count as your project management education. If you're a Concordia student, you take in a class in project management that I teach, those count as your contact hours. And you may be not have a bachelor degree yet, but you're in the workforce and you have extra experience in project management. So if you have secondary degree or high school degree, a minimum of 5 years experience, you can still apply to take your PMP exam. So what do I mean by non-overlapping project management experience is that when you do your application, PMI doesn't let you do double dipping, as they call it. So for example, here we have project 1 and project 2. Between February to April, here you can select which project you want to apply your experience into putting in the application. And that's what we can help you with the application process. And when you apply, you submit your application. It's nothing personal. You may get audited time to time. I did get audited myself when I sent my application. But the good thing was for me that I was working in an environment that I already knew my contacts. So I went to them and asked them to sign the forms and documentations that PMI requested. For that reason, we want to make sure that when you do your application process, we have a system for you that you can go through that Excel sheet and make sure that you're covering all your bases, making sure that the experience you're putting in there, you have the proper contacts, and not only have the contacts, making sure that you can reach your contact in case you get audited. But once you send your application and your audit process, you have 90 days to get audited if you do get audited. Again, that's a random by computer, nothing personal. PMI would process that in 5 to 7 days, and that's the time you get approved for taking your exam after that. Another change that came because of pandemic as of last year, last April, PMI is offering online testing option with Pearson View. And you take this in the comfort of your own home. Not only you can have a choice to go to the center, which by the way, if you want to go to this testing center, you want to make sure your exam date is set way ahead of time because testing centers have to have certain capacity right now. You may not have the time you want. But this is another change that they offer as of last year. You can take it online, but there are some requirements you have to meet. And one of them is a software that the proctor would download so they can watch you while you're doing going through the exam. And the exam has now 180 questions and is divided. If I know enough by now, because it's changing, is it two breaks or 3? But let's say if you have one break, you take your first 90 questions and you take a break. When you come back, that 90 questions, you cannot go back to it. So you have to make sure that you're done with those 90 questions and you review it. Then you say, I'm ready for my break. You take your break and come back and do the rest of the exam. So there are, of course, PMBOK is one of the reference books that you use, but there are many, many more reference books that PMI recommends. And there is a disclamation on PMI website. It says the references listed here are not inclusive or of all resources that may be utilized and should not be interpreted as a guaranteed means of passing the exam. I take it as you have to be really versed into project management and making sure that you understand the situational questions before you take your exam. And that's where we come in. As Concordia offers the training completion with contact hours, 35 hours of live virtual instructor-led training, and we help you set goals, objectives, and realistic time frame to take the exam. We help you support you with the application process and the exam simulation. This is really important to do as many simulations as you have the time for it to help you get familiar with the testing process and getting the mindset of how the questions come, so you can answer them. The tips for passing the exam would be all along the course when the instructors are teaching, the tips will providing tips on each of the chapters that we go through. And of course, the exam, once you take the exam, then you want to maintain the certifications, and that's where Concordia also supports you with um, holding to your certification by um, training you with the PDUs. Now there is a commitment from yourself as well. The main commitment is to register for the bootcamp, submit your application, and set a time for taking your exam. And another commitment is very important is from your family for support to balance your family and work obligations. I remember when I was taking my MBA, they actually asked us to fill in a form from an employer to make sure that employers know that we are actually going to school and working, and each one UT would know and the employer would know that the other one doesn't impact. So this is our commitment to give for 2 years of going to school on that, but it's not going to take 2 years for you to do the PMP exam. So set aside a schedule to study and measure your progress using simulations that I was talking about, and ensure to take care of yourself because it's going to be a very compressed time, especially if you're a working adult, you have spouse and children, and you work and you want to take the exam. So you need to have a lot of time management skills and support and balance within the family and life, and making sure that you take time for yourself. And we encourage you to take your exam as soon as you finish your boot camp, to take your exam because it's fresh on your mind. And see yourself as a PMP certified. I remember when I was taking my certification, my daughter at the time was a teenager. She drew a picture of me and the title was I'm a PMP. And that was a great motivation for me, not only to know that she's supporting me, but also have a goal that if I have downtime days that I don't feel good about the exam, then I would look at that and say that, yeah, I'm motivated, I'll be a PMP soon. So these are the commitments that you want to make to yourself. Once we stop sharing, I let Christine to help you with questions as far as registrations and date. And I believe Ahmad is putting the registration link on the chat. I want to thank you for, first of all, coming to this session and participating in polls and chat. And want to ask you to connect with me through LinkedIn for any speaking events or podcasts. And I have, as Christine mentioned, April 7th, I'm coming back to Incubator to talk about investment in your time, which is a mindset habit. And one of my specialties, other than project management, is setting goals and helping intentional mindset training. And I like to recognize the core team behind this boot camp, and we are available for questions after this session is completed. And I'm going to stop sharing so we can do another poll, Christine, for I want to know how many of you want to get your PMP exam.
You can see from the results, we had, I think, 86% of you voted, but it looks like a pretty good distribution here. So 11% as soon as possible, 16% 2 months, 16% 3 months, and then about half of you either 6 months or you're not planning to take the PMP exam. Okay, so that's very helpful. Right now, if you have been at this webinar and you want to register for the class, we are offering a discount. A few of you emailed me about this. If you are a Concordia alumni or a student or faculty or staff, we have a code, which is CTX26. And if you put that in the Eventbrite, it will give you $500 off. By the same token, if you are a veteran and you use the code CTXVET, CTXVET, you can also get $500 off. And so with that, I think if we can stop sharing the screen and go ahead to question and answer, that would be great.
Okay.
So does anybody have any questions for the panel?
What is the biggest challenge with the PMP exam? I can answer that, and then I let Ahmad to add to it. The challenge with the PMP exam to me is to, when I tell my students, it's like learning a new language. So you have to understand, have the mindset of PMI. So I tell them that leave what you're doing right now in your organization aside and learn it the PMI way. So it's my way or PMI way. So that's the challenge, to understand the way that they ask you questions. They understand not only the PMBOK way, of course, but also have be in the situation. And that's why we offer so many simulations to bring you in that mindset. And the other challenge is if you're an adult taking the exam already, which I was outside the classroom for many years. So imagine sitting there for taking the exam for that many hours. That's challenging. So you have to, again, is a mindset habit. You have to help yourself to get to that. And that's another thing that we help you during bootcamp, to get you in incremental and agile way, little by little, to get you familiar with the exam. And I let Ahmad to add to it.
Hey, Sally, how much time do I have? I can write a research paper about the challenges. So it starts with you. You know, like what Turan is saying, it takes a commitment. So the benefits are very important. So challenges, you start with, you do a SWOT analysis by yourself. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And you start, like, for example, what do I need to work? You start setting up the date. Okay, I'm gonna take it in 3 months from now. So let's say we're in January. Let's say I'm targeting April the 30th. Then I'm going to work backward. That's reverse engineering. I'm going to start, okay, I got the date set, so I'm committed. I'm accountable for that date. I'm going to start with a strategy. And what I found out, if you have a strategy based on the content we're going to give you, the material, the simulation, what Turan is talking about, is practice, practice, practice. The more exam you practice by domain. So I'm going to practice, for example, by process group, by people, by business environment. And if I miss something, I go back and find out why did I miss it. And if I got it wrong, if I got it right, I go back and find out what is the reasoning behind why it was right, so I can get it right. Because you got to wear your PMI hat and think in terms as a project manager using the PMI methodology, which is now changing. It uses both waterfall and agile, so which is good because you're using new changes, which is really needed in this COVID changes. So everybody is virtual. We have to be it's like very adaptive. We have to be flexible, ready to do change and respond immediately. So for me, it's a commitment. I have to set 3 hours a day, have a strategy to read the material, understand it, to practice questions, ask questions, have your formulas, understand your your material like procurement or risks or scope or human resources. And if you don't understand it, go back and read, and we address all those concerns and challenges in the class. But it boils down is like you got to have a plan, just like treat it like a project. So for example, a project is I'm going to pass the PMP by April the 30th. What are the requirements? I have the books, I have games, have simulation, have podcasts, have all the information that I need, the resources. And I have to have commitment. How many hours am I going to spend? Then it was like, what is my budget? How much money am I willing to spend on this? Because, I have to be really committed. And what are some of the concerns, risk, like Turan was talking about? You have family, life balance, exercising, and so forth. So it's a formula, but if you do it right, you're going to be successful, because by the end of the day, a lot of students, they were challenged, they asked the same question. And when they passed the PMP, I asked them like, could you write me your strategy for passing the exam? And they wrote it, and I was like, you remember? And I have those strategies, by the way, that I use for new students. I hope I answered the question.
You did.
How much the PMP exam cost? Really, just inquiring. I think Kristen already mentioned if you're a nonprofit or vet or alumni, you have a discount, which is great, and you're getting a good discount, which take advantage of it. The second question, Turan, do you want to jump on it?
Is that I'm currently MBA student and will not be able to enroll now, but will love to enroll for summer. Do you know the dates this bootcamp will be available after April? We like to offer the bootcamp regularly once we started. So we're working with the core team that I presented our names. We're working on our first initial date. And I believe, Christine, did you get a poll, or you will get a poll for when would, yeah, we did, right?
Yes,
Yeah, we did.
We just did the poll, and it looked like quite a few people wanted to start in the next 2 to 3 months. And then there was another group that wanted to start within 6 months.
Yeah, so is that Francita? You're in a good, just hang in there, and please keep in touch with for the summer, and Christine will send out notifications for the next session when we start the bootcamp.
Yeah.
So another question is the PMP exam fee included in the full bootcamp price? Wondering what other costs. So PMP exam fee that you're referring to, Jasmine, This is separate. So you go to pmi.org and you get your application downloaded. I believe it's, if I remember, it's either $405 or is it $450 for a member. If you're not a member, it's $555. So you pay and you do, you send your application, and once it's approved, you have 1 year to take your exam, and that's the fee that you're talking about, if I understand your question correctly. So that's separate from the boot camp, but your material for the exam is in the cost of the boot camp, the simulations and the material that you need to prepare for the exam.
I just want to add, Jasmine. So basically, Turan is correct. So basically, you got to register first with PMI. And once you register, you pay like a yearly fee, $128. And that 128 goes toward your application. So instead of paying $550, you're going to pay $428. And that's really what you're going to pay for your exam. And hopefully I answered your question. But the good news, you're going to become a PMI member. You're going to have access to a lot of benefit from networking, careers, and templates, and so many other benefits of PMI membership.
Yeah, and plus, Ahmad, they can download PMBOK from PMI website, which now I put in the presentation that now they have a section for members, and it's called Standard Plus, which PMBOK 7 is available digitally, so you can go and review it from there. I don't see one here.
It looks like, Ahmed and Turan, it looks like there's a question, what's the passing rate for first-time exam takers?
I don't want to guess. I was a first-time exam taker and I passed. So it all depends. You know, it goes back to things we discussed, your commitment to learning the new language and making sure that you're not just coming to the class and taking the bootcamp. It's not like the academic class. I always tell my students that in academic world, I prepare the class and I help the students to understand, and they get A, B, C, hopefully A. That's my goal. But for the boot camp, for exam prep, the instructor is under pressure just as the student is, because we want to make sure that you get through the boot camp, but then a lot of commitment is on you. You can't just sit in the class and think that, okay, I understand it, because you may understand the content, but again, it's a situational type of questions. You have to be in the situation, and that's why it takes a lot of time that Ahmed also referred to do the simulations in parts. Either you're taken by domain or you're taken by each of these roles and responsibilities, and by stakeholders and communication. So by then, little by little, you become prepared. What I've noticed in the teaching world, they say when you do your simulations for a full number of questions, not in the increment questions, it's best to get at least 85% in the simulations to feel comfortable to take the exam. So Ahmad, you want to add to what I said?
I think the good news with PMI, and Turan is correct, the good news with PMI, the passing rate is it goes down to 70%. The requirement you have to meet to have at least 70% to pass the exam. And their question is like, I think it used to be 200, now they brought it down to 180. And you have, like what Turan said, 4 hours, you got 10 minutes break. So short answer, what Turan said, is once you feel you're ready, and how do you know you're ready is by taking the exam prep class that we're going to offer, but we're going to give you an exam to test how much do you know. So if you score more than 70 or 75 or 80%, then we think that you're ready. And we're going to see how you respond to processes, people, input tools and technique. And we can assess and say, I think you're ready to go take it. Because sometimes you might not feel you're ready. You would never feel you're ready. But once you start scoring over 70, I think you should go for it, because you gotta have time management, make sure you finish on time, because the strategy, a lot of questions have a lot of noises, they have a lot of content. So we're gonna teach you to skip those and just focus on low-hanging fruits first, then jump on the other question that you mark for a review. And I always ask people, do not spend too much time on formulas, because if you're an engineer, you want to solve that problem. And instead of spending 1 minute, you end up spending 5 minutes, and that's not time management. So if you have any math problems, leave it at the end. And sometimes you don't even have to calculate. If you're doing earned value management, if it's positive, index is greater than 1, it's good. You can say, cost index is positive. We're under budget. That's good. We're ahead of time. That's good. You don't need to solve. Just understand that positive is good, negative is bad when you're talking about variance and indexes for the earned value management in cost and schedule. So that's a strategy. It's going to come together by the end of the course, and you're going to feel much comfortable by the end.
Yeah, and I like to add, Ahmad, for questions, there used to be multiple choice, but now is not only is multiple choice, it's also drag and drop and filling the blanks. So all this, you go through the simulation exam before you take the actual exam to help you with that time management that Ahmad was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, they have chart, they have drag and drop, they have situational. So a lot of questions are situational to show your experience and to show how you prepare, how you practiced.
Passing score for PMP. This is a good thing. I believe at the time that I was taking was 70%, but
Yes.
when they give you your certificate, they don't tell you if you got 70 or 71, they just say pass. So you be among the people who got 100% correct or 70% correct. I believe it might be the same, still 70% for passing exam. But when the computer comes in and tells you you passed, that's all you care.
Great. Well, I think that answers all the questions that we had from the chat and from the Q&A. If anybody does have any follow-up questions, Turan put up her contact information. My contact information was there as well, which is Kristen, KRISTIN.Spindler, SPINDLER @concordia.edu. So feel free to shoot me an email if you have any specific questions about, when you could start and that sort of thing. I did want to say Turan is speaking at Incubator. It's going to be a Zoom webinar on April 7th, 12 to 1, and the topic is time management. So we are charging for that talk, but if you've been on this webinar today, I wanted to give you a code, and the code is PMP 2021. So if you go to Eventbrite, you find that mindset webinar and you type in that code PMP 2021, your ticket will be free. And we'd love to have you join us for that as well, because that really is about setting your strategy, setting your timing, getting that balance that Ahmed and Turan talked about. And it's sort of the next step in, other than signing up for the test and signing up for the boot camp, it's really trying to get you to get in that mindset to become a PMP in 2021.
Yeah, it's a good timing for that. Thank you for bringing it up.
So thank you to everybody who was here. Thanks for listening to us. We are always trying to bring you new opportunities to hone your skills, develop your talents, especially in this new time when so many things are changing and in flux and online. It's a great opportunity to improve your career, increase your earning potential. A lot of people go back to school when things are in uncertain times. So we're really hoping that you'll join us later this spring. And again, thanks so much for joining us. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone.